Imagine standing here over 15,000 years ago. No cities, no farms, no roads, just endless wild grass and the daily struggle to survive. At first glance, these tiny wild seeds don't look like food at all. They're hard, dry, and almost impossible to eat. Bite into one raw, and you'll quickly regret it. They're tough enough to crack a tooth and provide almost no usable energy. Yet our ancestors carefully collected these seeds by hand, cutting each stalk with simple stone tools. They carried heavy bags of grain back to camp, even though gathering enough for a single meal took hours of exhausting work. Around the fire, the real challenge began. These tiny seeds had to be transformed before they could feed anyone. Using large flat stones, people crushed the grain into a fine powder. It was slow, repetitive work that demanded incredible patience. Then they mixed the fresh flour with a little water, creating one of humanity's earliest and most important recipes. The dough was placed on a hot stone beside the fire, where heat began changing it into something completely different. Within minutes, a simple flatbread appeared. It may have looked ordinary, but it would eventually change human history forever. For thousands of years, even during the Ice Age, people continued experimenting with wild grains, improving their techniques one generation at a time. They searched for the best grasses, gathering wheat, barley, and other edible seeds wherever nature allowed them to grow. Every seed had to be cleaned by hand, removing its tough outer shell before it could become useful food. Grinding changed everything. Hard, almost inedible seeds became soft flour that the human body could finally digest. And with nothing more than flour, water, and fire, our ancestors unknowingly created the first true bread, the beginning of a revolution that would shape civilization itself. The first bite changed everything. Bread delivered far more usable energy than raw grain ever could, making it worth every minute of hard work. Suddenly, these tiny seeds weren't just wild plants anymore. They had become one of the most valuable food sources humans had ever discovered. Unlike fresh meat or fruit, bread could be carried for long journeys, making it the perfect survival food for people constantly on the move. Families gathered around the fire, sharing bread together. It wasn't just food anymore, it became something that brought communities together. People began remembering where the best wild grain grew, returning to the same places season after season. Over time, temporary camps slowly became permanent villages as families stayed longer near reliable food sources. Then came a simple but revolutionary idea. Instead of searching for wild grain every year, why not plant the seeds ourselves? Months later, those tiny seeds grew into fields of grain. For the first time, humans were helping nature produce their food. Successful harvests meant more flour, more bread, and enough food to support larger families than ever before. Extra grain needed protection. So people built storage houses to keep their harvests safe through every season. As food became more reliable, villages expanded. More people, more homes, and new jobs slowly transformed simple settlements into thriving communities. Leaders emerged to organize farming, protect food supplies, and manage growing populations. Civilization was beginning to take shape. Soon, grain and bread became valuable trade goods. Communities exchanged food for tools, pottery, clothing, and other necessities. Bread also powered long journeys. Travelers, traders, and early warriors depended on it because it stayed edible far longer than fresh food. What started as a handful of wild seeds had now sparked farming, trade, permanent villages, and the first steps toward human civilization. One day, someone forgot a bowl of dough. Instead of throwing it away, they baked it and something incredible happened. Tiny natural yeast from the air had filled the dough with bubbles, making it rise into a lighter and softer loaf. As the dough baked, those trapped air pockets expanded, creating bread that was fluffier, tastier, and easier to eat. People quickly realized this wasn't an accident to ignore. It was a discovery worth repeating again and again. Ancient Egypt became one of the world's greatest baking centers, producing many varieties of bread for everyday life and special occasions. Bread became so valuable that workers were often paid with bread and beer instead of money, proving food itself could be a form of wealth. Bread and beer were closely connected. Both began with grain, water, and natural fermentation, making them two sides of the same invention. Ancient brewers and bakers shared ingredients, techniques, and even yeast, creating a cycle that improved both foods over time. But behind every loaf was hours of exhausting labor. Grinding grain by hand demanded incredible strength and patience every single day. Archaeologists have found evidence that years of grinding permanently changed people's bodies, especially the women who performed most of this work. Eventually, rotating grinding stones replaced older methods, making flour production faster, smoother, and far less exhausting. The Romans took another giant leap by using flowing water to power massive flour mills, producing more grain than ever before. Large public bakeries filled Roman cities with fresh bread every day, feeding thousands of people across the empire. Leaders understood a simple truth: keep people supplied with bread, and society remained stable. Food became a powerful political tool. By now, bread was no longer just a meal. It had become the foundation of trade, industry, government, and one of the greatest civilizations in history. Across the ocean, the people of Mesoamerica transformed corn into soft tortillas, proving that different cultures could discover similar ideas on their own. In Ethiopia, tiny teff grains became injera, a soft fermented flatbread that has remained a daily staple for thousands of years. Across South Asia, wheat was turned into naan, roti, and chapati, each cooked with unique techniques but built on the same simple principle. Although these civilizations were separated by vast distances, they all reached the same conclusion: grind the grain, add water, and cook it with heat. Wheat, corn, rice, barley, or teff, it didn't matter. Different grains created different breads, but the science behind them stayed the same. As harvests grew larger, people needed records to track grain supplies. That simple need eventually helped give birth to the world's earliest writing systems. During the Middle Ages, even bread reflected social status. Wealthy families enjoyed soft white loaves, while ordinary people depended on darker, coarser bread. Throughout history, rising bread prices have sparked protests, riots, and even revolutions, reminding rulers that feeding people was essential for maintaining power. The Industrial Revolution transformed baking forever. Machines replaced much of the hard manual work, allowing bread to be produced on an enormous scale. Today, automated factories bake and package millions of loaves every single day, supplying supermarkets around the world within hours. From a rough prehistoric flatbread to perfectly sliced modern loaves, bread has continued evolving alongside human civilization. Every slice of toast carries a story that began thousands of years ago, connecting our breakfast tables to our earliest ancestors. Without bread, farming may have developed differently. Without farming, cities, kingdoms, and civilizations might never have existed as we know them. It's amazing to think that one simple mixture of grain, water, and heat helped shape nearly every chapter of human history. So the next time you eat a piece of bread, remember, you're not just eating food. You're holding the legacy of countless generations whose curiosity, hard work, and determination helped build the world we live in today.